Welcome to Weekly Bible Stories. This is our next installment. This is Weekly Bible Stories with Pastor Dave. It was formerly Vacation Bible Stories, but the vacation ended, and so now we're weekly. We were weekly before too. So this is the story of the Bronze Serpent and the fiery serpents. It's found in Numbers 21. This is a synopsis in the Children's Bible that I'll be reading. The Israelites had to travel far in the desert, but although God helped them to overcome the people in the cities that stood in their way, still people complained. They spoke against God and against Moses, moaning, "Why have you brought us out into Egypt to die in the desert? There is no bread and hardly any water. We are sick and tired of this miserable food." When God saw their ingratitude, he sent venomous snakes among them, and many of the Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "It was wrong for us to speak against God. Please ask him to take the snakes away." And so Moses prayed, and then God said to him, "Make a snake, put it on a pole. Anyone who's bitten can look at it and live." And so Moses made a bronze snake, and he put it on a pole, and when anyone was bitten by the snake and looked at the bronze snake, he lived. That would be the story.
Pastor, what's so wrong with complaining? Everybody complains.
You're right about that. Complaining is a human compulsion. It's a human tendency that we've probably all been guilty of, and so I'm not trying to be self-righteous here. But there is a way in which complaining. We used to tell my daughter Fiona that when she was little that if she complained she'd get bit by a snake, and so that never happened, but. There is a way in which there is a punishment, though, for complaining, and that is that you poison your relationships, and you poison your own view on life. It becomes a kind of addiction where we get used to complaining, and for one thing, it's the opposite of being grateful, which is why God is angry with them. Is that they're not grateful, even though he's given them manna, even though he's given them water from the rock, even though he liberated them from being in Egypt. He did all these things, even though he split the Red Sea, even though he gave them the law. He did all these things for them, and they keep saying, we wish we were back in Egypt. We wish we were slaves. We wish we weren't here, which is a way of being ungrateful to God. I suppose it'd be that idea of looking at the glass always as half empty, that we always kind of look at like Debbie Downer. We always look at life as being negative, and it has a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that we look at life as being negative, and guess what? Our life is always negative. But then that makes us miserable. But then if we're miserable, then we have a way, inevitably, of making everybody around us miserable, particularly the people who are close to us. And so even though you're complaining about somebody far away, somebody in Washington, D.C., or in Springfield, or at your workplace or something, and they're the target of your complaining, the people who have to put up with it are your family and the people you love. And you don't really mean to make their lives miserable, but you do. And so it is a kind of poison, even though it may not be literally a snake that gets you. It's still a kind of poison that makes all of our relationships toxic. And so, likewise, I think if we can count our blessings, name them one by one, then that makes us feel better, and that makes us easier to be around. If we're happy, then it makes people around us happy, and so that would ultimately be it's the idea of if there were some kind of meaning in the serpent that was being put on a pole, that what's inside of us gets taken out of us. And so if what's inside of us is negative, is complaining, then that gets taken out of us. Jesus says that you'll know a tree by its fruit, right? And so the admonition here is for us to count our blessings and remember what God has done for us, and not to complain, for the most part, because it makes us miserable and it makes other people miserable.
Thanks, Pastor.